back to Home and School. My name is Laura. I'm a homeschool mom of 3 kids. Today I'm going to be talking about how I homeschool during the preschool years. So this is when they're 3 years old and when they're 4 years old, those two years. And I approach the years differently because of the ages, and I also really just depends, of course, on the kid, right? Before I dig in, I do want to just say that my oldest, who is now 7, I didn't do all these things with because he was actually in a full-time daycare and I was working still when he was 3. So he learned his letter sounds really early because of the daycare that he was in. So when he first turned 3, which was in the January before that 3-year-old school year, so it was the January before he turned 3, and the daycare that he was in offered also a preschool program. So they had like a daycare in one building and then they had a preschool in the building right next door. And as a newly 3-year-old, he could go to the preschool a couple mornings a week. So we enrolled him to do like 2 morning a week preschool for the young 3-year-olds. And he learned all of his letter sounds by the spring. By the end of the spring, like he knew all of his letter sounds. I wasn't expecting that. I realized then that he was like a really quick learner. So that when that 3-year-old year came around, he went to a full-time preschool, knew all his letter sounds already, and he actually kind of started slowly over the next year. By the time he was in his 4-year-old year, he was reading, you know. And then COVID happened and I kept him at home, obviously because everything shut down. And that's when we decided to homeschool after that. So from then on, I taught him how to read at home, and he was off to the races. So he had a slightly different experience than my daughter, who's now 5 and going into kindergarten this coming year. So this, what I'm talking about now, is really what we did more so with her. Although I think if I had him at home during those years, I probably would have ended up doing the same thing with him. And I plan on doing this same thing with my youngest, who right now is 1. So I'm not doing anything anytime soon. But when he gets to these ages in his 3-year-old preschool year and then his 4-year-old like junior kindergarten year, this is kind of what I'm planning to do. Obviously depending on him and how he learns and all of that too. Both of my 2 older ones have been really quick learners and they've picked up on things really easily and they love doing school. And like my 5-year-old, really, she just wanted books like her big brother. So I was just like, all right, let's just do this, you know. So obviously it's going to depend a little bit on where he's at when he gets to that age, but this is kind of my plan and this is what I've done before. Okay, so first up in this 3-year-old year, we read. Like, we read a lot. One of the things that I've always had my kids do, even from the time they were really little, and they're just really used to this by now, is every day we have like a 15 to 20 minute quiet reading time where everybody sits on the couch with a book, or, you know, if you're 2 and 3, like a whole pile of books, and everybody just reads quietly. Now, before they were even actually reading, they would just have like I remember my daughter at 2 years old just like sitting on the couch surrounded by picture books and board books and stuff, and she would just sit there and like look at all the books. And they're so used to this at this point, and I think that's just really good for them. And that's like outside of our focused school time during the school year. Like, this is something we even do during the summertime. So that's huge. I always put that into our school time. And as they get older and they have like required assigned reading where they're going through a literature book or something like that, that will be something that they read during that quiet reading time. So at this 3-year-old preschool age, that's definitely something that I expect that they're going to be able to do with me. Like, sit down, look at the books, stay quiet for 15 minutes and look at those pictures and stuff, and we're good. But then in that 30-minute like focused school time during the school year, I do read to them. So some of the main things we read this year are like Bible stories, Mother Goose, nursery rhymes. We'll read some like simple poetry, stuff like that. So I keep it really simple. I mean, at this age, they love those nursery rhymes and the Mother Goose stuff. And then this is the picture Bible I usually read at this age. My Catholic picture Bible stories. It's from Ascension Press. And these ones they're like one page, and it's all like some of the main Bible stories from the Bible. So this is a great one for this age. And if you're wondering about like, what books do I read picture book wise, there are so many great picture book reading lists out there. Some of my favorites for this 3-year-old age is, let me think. I mean, Memoria Press has great picture books. They just know how to find the best picture books that have beautiful illustrations, a great message, good vocabulary. They have like this gift for finding excellent books. So definitely look at like Memoria Press's preschool and junior kindergarten, those lists. For this 3-year-old age, I tend to go more towards the junior kindergarten picture book list. And then the Peaceful Press also has their Peaceful Preschool program, and they have a ton of great picture books on their reading list too. So those are like some of my favorites. And there's some crossover for sure of the books, but those are some of my favorite book lists for this 3-year-old age. So one of the main goals of this 3-year-old year, is letter sounds. And we really do this just with like flashcards. I mean, that's part of our 30-minute focus time, is we practice our flashcards every day. Takes like 2 minutes. And I always teach sounds first before letter names. So they see the A and they say ah. And then we say A says ah. And then another thing that we do is like a letter puzzle, and we'll find each letter and they'll tell me the sound and they have to put it in the puzzle. Stuff like that. So we're doing lots of things to practice those sounds, specifically the letter sounds. I want them to get the sounds down before we know the names of the letters. Along with the letter sounds, I'll also like pull this out a lot. This is just like a white, write and wipe letter and numbers. And my kids have always loved this. There's something about writing letters and numbers with a dry erase marker that is apparently so much more fun than a pencil for some reason. And they've always loved doing this. So I definitely pull this out like every day. We'll practice our letter sounds. They'll practice writing a little bit with the marker. It's fun. And then we'll do things to keep their hands busy, like fine motor type things. So for instance, we do a lot of cut and paste, practicing glue sticks and scissors. Memoria Press has like the cut and paste books, and my kids have always loved those. Those are awesome. So we do that. We do lots of Play-Doh and kinetic sand. We play with chalk outside, and we try drawing our letters with the chalk outside. So, I mean, like so many things like this, where it's also just kind of bringing in some, it's also kind of fun. But we always have that 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of like focused time. Another fun thing these are the types of things that I'll pull out too. These are called squigs, and they're very fun. Like even with my 1-year-old already, I pull this out while he's in the high chair, and I need him to stay in the high chair because I know he'll get into the dishwasher while I'm doing dishes. So I give him a bunch of these to play with in the high chair. They just kind of like stick together, and you can build things with them, and they stick to the high chair too, which is fun. So stuff like that, lots of like fine motor building, all sorts of things like that. And then lots and lots of counting. We count everything. count things in the books that we're reading. So if we're reading a picture book and it has a bunch of ducks, we count the ducks in the pond. Like anytime there's something to count, we count it, because we're really practicing counting. And then another big thing at this age too is we're starting to focus on just getting some daily habits and some very, very basic chores down. So some of those daily habits at this age are things like learning how to wash our hands properly, going potty independently, getting dressed independently, cleaning our room at the end of the day before bed. That's like a standard thing in our home. Everybody cleans their room at the end of the day before bed. We always go to bed with a clean room. Picking up our toys in the family room, just some basic chores and cleaning up after ourselves, and some daily habits, brushing our teeth morning and night, you know, things like that. And we're just focusing on getting the routine of that down. And it's very simple, but we're just practicing that routine and figuring out how to do that, right? And how to do it without mommy's help all the time, because mommy can't always help all the time. So that's really important at this 3-year-old age too for us. I mean, this is a very light year of preschool, you know, they're only 3, so they're still, I mean, they need to play. They need to play a lot. So, but having some sort of focus time every day is also so important, because by the time, if we don't start this now and start it small, when they get to like 5 and 6 years old and they have to do this because, you know, they're school age now, whether they go to school or, you know, we're starting our kindergarten year or our first grade year, all of a sudden they have to sit and they have to do their work, and they're not ready to do that because they haven't practiced this. It's practicing and preparing to be able to do the 3rd grade work down the road. You know what I'm saying? So it's a really simple year. It's a really simple year. Then the 4-year-old year is when, I mean, this is really up to you and your kid, right? So at this point for me, both of my older kids have known their letter sounds and they are so ready to move on. They don't want to keep practicing with the flashcards every day anymore because they know all the sounds, you know? And when your kid gets to that point, there comes a point where you kind of see it and you're like, okay, should I be continuing to do the exact same thing when I know they know this already? Or do I need to continue to challenge them a little bit? And this is one of the things that I've come across as my kids have grown, is that they need to be challenged a little bit. They can't keep doing the same things that they were doing last year already. And they know those things already. They're like, okay, I'm ready to move on. So that's where we've been at when we got to this 4-year-old year. So during this 4-year-old year, I call it junior kindergarten. Some companies call it that with their curriculum too, but I just like that distinction. Like 3-year-old is preschool, 4-year-old, you're in junior kindergarten. You're getting ready for kindergarten now. Again, we read. We continue our independent reading time every day, and we read all the time. So at this point, usually I'm looking at like the Memoria Press has the kindergarten enrichment books, and that's kind of what I did with my now 5-year-old this past year. When she was in this junior kindergarten age, we went through the kindergarten enrichment because her brother was in 1st grade too, so I kind of like started with the kindergarten. So again, lots and lots of picture books. The other things that we read during this year are poetry, like Robert Louis Stevenson, short poems like that. And then, let's see what I have here. Also, Winnie the Pooh. This is like a big book of Winnie the Pooh. But I mean, we love these. And then the other one is Aesop's Fables. These ones, I love this version. The McElderry book of Aesop's Fables. They also have Grimm's Fairy Tales in this version too, and then this version also has Greek myths. It's like a picture book of the Aesop's Fables, and these are great. So we read these during this 4-year-old year. And then I also have them start memorizing poetry a little bit. So now we're starting to bring in some of these other elements of school, right? And we're starting to memorize a little bit. We keep it really short, like little 4-line poems, and they are so good at this age. For instance, a lot of like the Robert Louis Stevenson poems are super easy for them to memorize, like The Whole Duty of Children or Happy Thought, something like 30 Days Hath September, stuff like that. So they are starting to be able to show off the fact that they can memorize things, and it's very exciting. And then we also add in calendar at this point too. So this past year we had like a calendar time in the morning. We practiced our memory, our poetry memory. We also did, like, the Memoria Press has the recitation. So it's like question and answer format. So I would say something like, can you name the days of the week? And my daughter would name off the days of the week. So we would practice things like that. And then this is the year that I started having them begin to learn to read. And it's really, again, just because they knew their letter sounds at this point after the 3-year-old year, and they were ready to move on. I could see them starting to kind of blend the letters together when we would, like, I would just give them 1 or 2 sounds next to each other, like, you know, k and a, and they'd be able to be like, oh, I can blend that together. I can say those at the same time and make a sound, you know? So they were ready for it. I love the First Start Reading program, especially those first couple books, because I feel like you can take your time with it. You can slow down and practice. You also have handwriting incorporated into it, so you don't need to get a separate handwriting book. And it starts pretty quickly with being able to blend some certain sounds. Like, it gets you jumping right into that, rather than, you know, we practice all these sounds and then we practice all these sounds, like all the short vowels and then all the consonants, and then finally 2 months into school we're finally starting to blend. But it started with M, and then we did A, and then we were able to go ma, you know. So it took, you can take your time with it, but you're also feeling like your child is feeling like they're progressing enough. They're like, oh, this is cool, I can do this, you know. One of the books that goes along with the First Start Reading is this Classical Phonics, and honestly, like, you could teach reading just from this book. Like, not even, you don't need everything else. You literally could teach reading just from this book. It's kind of like a primer style. So like the first couple pages are this. We have M, and then we have man, moon, mop, right? And that's how you're starting this. And then, oh, look, okay, now let's put A and M together, am, right? And it's a good pace, and you just practice a page or 2 each day. You move slowly through it until, you know, you've got enough sounds that you can put a few letters together, and now you can read a few words, and you keep going, and now we can read a bunch of words, you know. And then we get into unit 2 where we're really starting to read words, you know. Here we go. So, like, honestly, you could just teach reading through this book, because by the end of the book you can read words like mountain and soften and listen and quarrel, you know. So this book is awesome. This book is awesome. And then one of the books too that we practice with are the American Language Readers series. This is book 1, Fun in the Sun, and they're really, really simple. And my daughter has loved this. This is great. She's read through this whole one, and she's on like book 3 now. 3? Yeah, she's on like book 3 now. So we start with that during this 4-year-old year at some point. We didn't start with it right away with my daughter this time. We started it maybe like a month or 2 into school, and she did so great with it, and she's reading fairly well now. She's ready for like first grade reading, and oh, she's doing awesome. So, and we took our time. It's not like we were rushing through things, you know. We take our time. We have that focused time every day, and that's it. That's all you really need to do. If you just practice a little bit every day, you'd be surprised how much that little bit of practice every day adds up. And by the end of the school year, wow, they're doing awesome, you know. The other thing we do during the 4-year-old year is I've done kindergarten math with confidence, and I have a whole video about this. I'll pin it up there. But yeah, that's been really good for my kids too. It's one page. They're getting some basic mathematics, arithmetic happening, and some good conceptual math, and it's been so great, and they've done really, really well with this during their 4-year-old year. And then again, lastly, we're also continuing those daily habits and chores. During this 4-year-old year, we kind of add a couple things on. So we're already washing our hands independently, we're going potty independently, we're making sure our room's clean at the end of the day, we're working on brushing our teeth morning and night. So now we add in a couple more chore things. For instance, at the beginning of the day when we wake up, we get dressed, we brush our teeth, we make our bed. And then I start having them help me with certain things like setting the table or cleaning off the table at the end of the meal. So we're starting to add in a couple more chores, and we're still working on those daily habits every day. And I think that's just so helpful for kids so that they get into habit of these things when they're young, and we don't have bad oral hygiene when we're, you know, adults. That's great, right? So this is kind of what a lot of the things that we do during these 2 years, this 3-year-old and 4-year-old year. Again, I try to just kind of, the main goal here really is to differentiate. We have some focused work time where we practice something that we're learning and we try to get better at it. And, you know, it's like school, right? And then we have specific chores because we are part of a family and everybody participates in the family. So let's work on the helping each other and also taking care of our own selves, right? And then we also have time, so much time for play and exploring and being creative and doing lots of fun things, right? So I think it's so good for kids to have that and understand some of these things when they're little, and already start practicing some of those things when they're little, so that life as an adult isn't so bad, you know, like you don't have to complain about adulting every day because you're like, oh no, I understand. I have good discipline and good habits, and I know how to take care of these things, and I know what's important in my life, and I know how to focus if I want to learn something and do something well, you know? So all that being said, these are the things we do during these couple of years. If you have any questions, put a comment down below, and hopefully this is helpful for some of you out there who are wondering how to really get started with homeschooling preschool. And hopefully we will see you in the next video.